All right, let me mute everyone just to be safe. And Winnie, who's the only absolute 100% gonna tell a story, you're gonna tell a story. You down for that? Note to self, and if you ever host an event, when you mute yourself, people can't hear you. Yeah, you didn't know I was gonna give you that kind of drop that kind of wisdom. Winnie, take your time, even if it feels long. And
I wouldn't mind if everyone's unmuted.
you okay?
I wouldn't mind, as long as there's no
Yeah,
background noise and it's just a reaction to.
yeah, I know that it's a tricky spot when you have
Okay.
nothing, no one's responding. So let's leave that as an option for
Yeah,
people.
I'm okay with it. I'm sorry, my husband's telling a story to a couple of kids on Zoom, so you might hear him randomly.
We
uh,
literally have two stories going on simultaneously in
but
window.
yeah,
All right,
uh, what are
hang on,
the odds?
Winnie. I'm just letting one more person in, um, and I don't want it to. Hey, Nick. Nick, just so you know, Winnie in Reno, Nevada, is going to share a story, and she is okay with people being unmuted. So as long as you don't have a lot of background noise, we could give her a little unmuted love.
All right. Well, I'm gonna probably stay muted because I'm in the middle of eating, so I don't want to be rude. I'm not
Fair enough.
sharing. I don't share very well. I'm just saying.
Okay. Okay. Thanks, Nick. All right, Winnie. Whenever you're ready, we are all ears and heart.
I'm Winnie, and I'm doing my master's in storytelling at East Tennessee State University. I'm originally from India, and so this is my little tryst with some mental health issues that I faced while I was in India. Not to say that I'm totally fine and everything's okay right now. Um, I'm just going to share of the story that has teeny tiny little bit of a hope in it. So, so not that everything's fine, but there is there is some little hope.
Mm.
I'm sitting crouched on my bedroom floor. My mother is sitting behind me, not knowing whether she should hold my shoulders or not. My grandmother is sitting in front of me, and we are all crying. We're also sweating because we're from a tropical place in South India. But I can't stop thinking about anything but just wanting to pull my hair out. I slowly feel myself heading towards the floor. My my hands that don't even feel like mine anymore are now squeezing between my knees. And I'm telling myself, I want to pull my hair. I want to pull my hair, but just not pulling it. You see, up until then, none of us knew what this was. We had no clue. My grandmother called it a bad habit. I thought it was just me. It was just some little quirk I had. Oh, I loved to let my hands graze my head, look for that one rugged hair, pull it out, feel that satisfactory taste in my mouth, even though I didn't have anything in my mouth. And then the joy of looking at that perfect bulb at the end, pulling it a little bit, playing with it for a second or two, flicking it, just to let my hand graze my head again to pull out the next hair. I had pieces of hair on my textbook. Hair, wads of hair filled my bedroom floor. It was all over the place, and I I didn't know how to stop it. I come from a very, very traditional Indian family. And so when we have any issues, when we need advice, we go to the wise. And so I decided I'm going to ask Google what this is. So I typed hair pulling on Google and I actually found a word for it. Trichotillomania. Wait, what? I'm not a maniac. I freaked out about that then. And then I typed to figure out why the name came to being. And somehow I figured it was a form of obsessive compulsive disorder. And I needed professional help. Now, because we come from a very traditional family, my parents, my grandmother, they did not want me to get professional help. We're not from that kind of a family. We don't have any, just, you know what? Just resolve and just stop this bad habit, they said. But I don't necessarily think I got a yes from them. But it was after this one incident that I saw things change a little bit. I'm wearing a very beautiful silk sari, and I'm wearing dangling gold colored earrings, and this is my best friend's sister's wedding. And so I'm so excited to be all dressed. I have lipstick on for maybe the third or fourth time in my life. And I decide to straighten my hair out. Today, I am going to just be who I am. I'm going to own it. I am going to let my bald spots show. As we stood for a picture at the wedding, one of my friends from behind me, just after the click, looked at me and said, "Ew, what? There's no hair. What's wrong with your head?" And I felt my blood drain from my body, and I can't remember anything else from that wedding because all I wanted was to put on my disguise. I told this to my parents. I sent them links to what this trichotillomania was. I sent them pictures of OCD, and like I said, I never got a yes, but finally I found myself in my therapist's office. It was going to be my first step at tearing off that disguise, just being me again. So as you can see, I'm not completely over it, but I have such beautiful hair now. I have to say that this is not over, and I'm still battling with this. I find myself touching my hair sometimes. I find myself out of control sometimes, but I can see that the disguise is almost gone. That's about it. I actually told you a little bit more after the end of the story, which is why it did feel like a
Good. Thanks, Winnie.
Yeah.
So for a few people came late, Winnie is getting, so I don't want to get this wrong, and I don't think there's any other programs like it, right? It's kind of unique. Maybe I think there's something in Australia I saw. That's it.
It's the only one in the United States.
So it's a master's in what?
Storytelling and communication.
Straight up storytelling.
Mm-hmm.
East Tennessee State.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you didn't know about that?
Sorry. I mean, I knew of it. I didn't think it was the only one in North America, you know.
It
I didn't
is.
know. Yeah. And
There
is it
are certificate programs, but
right? I don't count them. I'm sure they're great, but it's a little different when it's sort of an accredited thing that's been through presumably been through the, I don't know. How many people are in that, Winnie? How many people are in that program?
We are 8, 9 of us.
Wow.
In my cohort, and then there's the first years. There are about I want to say 9 of them again. Yeah, 9, 10 of them.
So it's small.
Yeah.
Yeah. So here's my question. It's not about, there's an open mic, even though it's small, and this is the second time I've done this sort of mental health happy-ish hour, so it'll grow. But I also know you're a storyteller and you're studying it. So if you want feedback that I typically would say this is an open mic, we won't offer it. It's up to you. No pressure. Lovely story. What I'm curious about, you did say there was more to the story. There's always more to the story, right?
Mm-hmm.
I want to hear that extra bit because you started and then you stopped. Would you mind sharing that, or is that unfair?
Yeah, sure. So I remember after my first visit with my therapist, I was given this exercise called ERP, where I tell myself, I want to pull my hair. I want to pull my hair, and just not pull it. And that way I'm training my brain to rewire, I want to say. And it was really hard. It was very hard at first. But as I kept practicing the ERP, and with all the support that my mother and my grandmother gave me, oh my gosh, I cannot tell you how much. They sat with me, they cried with me, they held me when I needed holding. Slowly it got better. I could do it by myself. I would just sit at my study table, and I would tell this was when I was in undergrad, so I was about 20 years old, I want to say. And so I would sit at my study table, and I could just tell myself I want to pull my hair, and I just wouldn't pull my hair. So it got better, and finally all that was left was resolve. So I pulled out one strand of hair. I stuck it on a piece of paper. I put it up on my wall. I had 3 red arrows drawn and cut out, and I titled it "The Last Ever Hair I Pulled." It wasn't the last ever hair I pulled, but this is March 2012. Ever since, I think 2 years back, I noticed that I didn't have any bald spots anymore. So when I was up in one of the Himalayan mountains and I was just standing there feeling the breeze, I usually could feel the breeze on my head because there was no hair. I couldn't feel the breeze, and I was like, whoa, there's actual hair blocking the air, you know? So 2 years back was when I actually noticed the difference. And I haven't cut my hair because I don't have the heart to cut it. I have like really long hair now. And except that I still touch it and, you know, play with it and all of that. But yeah, I don't have bald spots anymore. So
clearly not.
Good for you.
And I don't have to do ERP anymore. So it's
oh, is that right?
Yeah. I just have to do a habit reversal, which is basically whenever I want to reach for my hair, I just do the opposite motion, which is put my hand down. So stretch my hand out downward rather than letting it go upward. So
at this point in your life, you sometimes still get that temptation or compelled to do it? You do?
Yeah, because it's like what 4 or 5 years of pulling my hair out that it's so part of me that it's taking me so many years to even get rid of that habit of reaching for my hair, even though it's no longer an issue in my head. I think, I don't know technically, it's easier now. It's easier for me to consciously say, hey, wait, what are you doing again? Okay, let's do the habit reversal, you know. So
were you under a lot of stress at that time?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, there's this part that I say in my longer version of the story of how when I was in high school, I had teachers who were very far from empathetic. I had one teacher say that my left hand is so strong, you don't want to know how strong it is. And oh, it was really bad. High school was very bad for me. So I'm from what I got from my therapist, it was high school that the effects of high school that showed. Yeah. Plus, I wanted to do something creative, but then because again we're from a very traditional family, I was asked to do something safe that would earn me money for my undergrad, not go into the arts. And I'm this crazy person who has so much to share and give, and I have too much energy. I couldn't do the whole accounting was, it wasn't.
Counting was.
Yeah.
It almost felt like I was constrained, that there was no outlet. Then maybe this was a way for me to let it out.
What does the acronym stand for? The FRP?
ERP, exposure response.
Oh, ERP. Okay.
Yeah. I don't know if Alyssa knows it though. ERP. I don't know what the P is. I just know it's exposure response because I expose myself to the thought of wanting to pull my hair out.
Yeah.
But I respond with not pulling it. So I know that's the.
Yeah. I have a couple of thoughts. If other people have thoughts, by all means, unmute yourself, share them. I have a thing that I feel weird about because I feel like a fool. I get this feeling often. A few people on here know me and they're like, yep. I didn't realize that pulling my hair out is actually maybe from something actually real.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was kind of just an expression, sort of, and it's okay. It's based in some real shit.
Yep.
Some real stuff. Now, if you're wondering if, I won't even say about me and Corey, it's not appropriate. My question for you, Winnie, also, and it's getting more on the story stuff because I'm very curious. A lot of the people here, I know them, and I know them through story, through different groups that meet and geek out on this stuff like it sounds like you do. What was the feedback that you said you had several different versions or iterations? I think you said that, or in your class. What was the feedback from them? I'm curious to see how this story sort of shifted and where it went from and to. Remember that?
So I have an extremely long version of it. I have a medium version of it.
Okay.
I have an alternate version of it, and I have the small version of it. So I shared with you the
what
small
did we
version.
get? Oh, we got the small one? Okay.
Yeah, so I shared with you all the small version, and the last bit in this version that I just shared was just me talking, and I was like, oh my gosh, I should have stopped talking at the end of the story because I didn't know how to end it after that. So
that's a funny
not part of the story.
awareness. So, that's funny, good awareness, I guess. I don't necessarily agree. I think it's just funny that you said that.
Yeah, I was like, wait, what am I saying? I realized I was just blabbering at the end. But what I got was I had taken off the part about my friend shooting me down with ew, what's with your hair, I had actually taken that part off in one version, in one of my times that I told the story, that a lot of my friends from my cohort said it's actually a very important part to the story, where I'm trying to own this whole thing, but I'm not able to, and I don't know how to. So how the image of having the bald spots was something that was important. So I put that in this short version of the story, and the other input was that the first few times that I told the story, I hadn't told how much I pulled my hair. It sounded like I just pulled it once and forgot about it and then pulled it later. It didn't feel like it didn't sound when I told the story that it was an incessant pulling that I constantly did.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to add the image of how there was strands of hair on the table and on the floor, and there was just lots of hair. So had to add that image in to make sure that I convey that. Then there was this a framing part that I had where when I was a little kid, we had I'm from a very I'm from a city where the 3 seasons or 4 seasons that we have are hot, hotter, and hottest.
Okay.
So the very first time that I went, I went to a hill station, to a cold place, was when I was 7 years old, and I was so excited because we were going to be between the clouds, and I had planned to take this little box with me to catch the clouds and bring it back home, and I actually did it. So I say that I was reaching for the clouds, and then I found myself reaching for my hair. I wasn't reaching for the clouds anymore. And then in the end, during my yoga teacher's training, I'm standing on top of one of the lower Himalayan mountains after this really long trek, and I can't feel the wind in my hair. I'm looking at all these strong mountains and how they're just so unwavering. They're just there no matter what, rain, shine. And I reach my hands up and I reach for the clouds. So that's one that I frame it with in a longer version, in the middle.
Well, how long is the longest version?
Oh, I was trying to look that up. I think it's 19 minutes, the longest version.
That's a long story.
Yeah, 19 minutes. And then my professor was like, keep these parts for the long version. Keep this part for the short version. This is good. You can't fit everything into the short version, and I tend to do that a lot. I want to give the whole story when actually I don't have to. So
cool. Appreciate you sharing that, Winnie. Yeah. Do we have another teller? Do not leave Winnie on this island alone. Now, just to be clear, and people might not love what I'm about to say, but I can do it. Mental health is sort of, I define that rather broadly. You can define for yourself what mental health means. So if you've dealt with some addiction or trauma, or just, it could really mean a whole lot of things. It's not for me to say what it is or it is not. Chances are, if it's just that you went to the supermarket and bought these great cucumbers and then went home and you made this great salad and you put the cucumbers in the salad and then you ate the salad, that's probably not going to work. That kind of story. I mean, I'm glad for you. But anyway, I'll leave it open. I'll let you think for a sec, because I know there's at least one of you that's like, you know what? Yeah, I'm going to tell a story.
JFB.
Who?
JFB. Julie fucking Baker. No.
Sherry, what about you? No one's putting anyone on the spot. Sherry, you've talked to me. You're not ready yet. We'll get there.
That story's not ready. No.
No, I know.
But you don't have any other stories?
Oh, I have tons of stories.
well, I mean, I want to talk about you in particular. I mean, just in general.
Yeah. I mean.
Again, I am not doing a good job of clarifying.
You're meaning for the group.
Yeah, I meant for the group. I mean, I stopped in because I don't get a chance to stop in on Sundays very often to support Sean. He has lots of great shows. So I was like, oh, yes, I got time. I'm going to come in and I'm going to be a good audience guy. And I'm going to listen with the camera on and not have my mouth full. And apparently you need some more stories.
Yeah, until we get like enough people regularly to tell, it'll be a loose-ish thing. And I'm okay with that because that's how stuff grows. There's no doubt a need, so it'll be a matter of time. So yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'll do one that I haven't done in like forever. I mean, not even sure if I'm going to get it all right or parts of it anyway.
Loose, man. So yeah. I know you are a performer, but we're just here talking, so it's loose.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's I mean, now I do a lot of stories that have humor in them a lot, but that's also because I'm doing the stand-up stuff. But there's, I mean, I got into storytelling just because there was always like, hey, here's an important thing I think should be said. So, and that's where this story comes from. So we'll see how much I can remember.
All right, awesome. Appreciate it, Nick.
Sure. So the guy says to me, so everybody's good at something. And I'm not really believing him. See, this is a few years ago. I'm riding in the back of a fire engine. I'm a firefighter. I've been a firefighter for 20 years at this point, but by then must have been around 15 years or so. The guy sitting for me was Marcelo Trejo. And he's that guy that you can't wait to see what he's going to do next. He's the guy who's going to do something really awesome in the fire department. He's a big smile. He welcomes everybody. And that's what he said to me while we sit in the back. Now, I don't know if he knew for sure, but I did not fit at this firehouse at all. There's a whole list of reasons why I could probably only ever guess that, but I was definitely not in the right place at the right time. There's something about pissing off the fire chief and then winding up in the station where people weren't expecting you because they were expecting someone else. It kind of tells you that this is going to be a long assignment. And so my goal was this: I'm going to be at this assignment. I'm going to keep my head low. I'm going to do my job. And it's the fire department. I wait a few years. I'll transfer somewhere else. But until then, I'm just here for the job. I don't need to talk to anybody. I don't need to be friends. I just need to get through. But here's this guy, Marcelo, and he's just, what are you good at? I'm first generation firefighter in my family. And considering that I'm Black, there just aren't a whole lot of Black folk wanting to run towards danger. That's not a typical thing. I mean, we do military stuff. There's that, right? But that's about it. When I joined the fire department, I joined as a volunteer, and I called my mom and I let her know. My uncle called me 10 minutes later and said, boy, you all right? Your mama said you're living at the firehouse. You need some money? I can give you a 50. I'm fine, Uncle Mike. I'm fine. So I went through all that. I'm now in the career, and I'm now sitting here in the back, and I'm talking to Marcelo, and I realized that despite everything else going on, he is willing to be super accepting of me. That even though I am different from him and everybody else in the station, he's willing to kind of have me there in that circle. And that is not a typical thing for the fire service. It is very macho. It is very much gung-ho. It is very much you need to prove how tough you are. And here this guy is saying, I didn't need to be. And that was the first time I had seen that sort of thing in the fire service. Which makes it really weird, not weird, which makes it really stunning for me that years later, he took his own life. On the 4th of July, he took his own life, and it didn't even come out like that. It came out that, hey, we've had someone pass away, and it's the fire service. So the first thing you think is, oh my God, the cancer got him. Was it the fire or whatever else? No one, well, I would not have expected that. We didn't get to be close friends, but we got to be pretty good friends. We did things together. Our kids knew each other. And it wasn't supposed to be him. He was the guy that I had envisioned that one day would get higher in rank, and then he would do great things, and he would help change and shift ideas, and he'd help people be more accepting of things. And that's what I saw. And I had zero idea that there was ever anything else going on. And so myself, actually lots of people in the fire service for my fire department had to ask the question of, how did we miss that, right? Because he didn't look anything like the stereotypical signs. He didn't look like the person we would go onto the call, and there they would be, and we had to talk them off the ledge, that we had to get the medicine out their stomach, that we had to convince them that there was no need to pull that trigger. If we do this on a day-to-day basis, saving other people, how is it that we could not save our own? There's a lot of things that I now understand that went into there. Things that where there are parts of where he had some other things going on, but there was also some other contributing factors that I think our fire department, our stations should have done better. So I have a problem. Well, actually, I have a lot of problems. That's just me, really. I'm broke. I'm not broke, but like, I don't have the money that I want. I'm still trying to be a good dad. Apparently, I'm supposed to be responsible and whatever. I'm pretty sure it's my kid who raises me more than anything. Thank God for homeschooling, because she has taught me a lot. She has helped get my computer skills up, helped me out with math. She's doing phenomenal. But what I have a problem with is whenever something happens and there's a cause, it's this idea of, hey, let's send thoughts and prayers. Sorry about your loss. Man, I hope that doesn't happen. And I don't know if that's part of the fire service in me. We're type A people, typically. I'm not really type A. I'm more like a B plus. I'm laid back, but every now and again I'll do things. And so I wanted to do something in particular for him. And so what I did is the whole month, the whole suicide month, every day, I did a blog. And I would blog and I would just whatever I could learn about mental health and just suicide prevention and all that. I would do all that. And then because I'm also in the military, so you got to understand I'm a little nervous. So I was in the military, and typically 22 or so people from the military commit suicide. I'm in the fire service, and our suicide rates are rising. And I'm a Black man in America. Odds aren't really going good for me here at this point. So I feel like I got to actually do something. So I decided to honor him in that way, and I raised money and awareness. And what I did is I would do the 22 push-ups a month. I'm 22 push-ups a day. But because I'm in the fire service and I'm B plus, I also did these things called burpees. I don't know if you know what burpees are. They're pretty much they're self-torture is what they amount to be. But he was really into physical fitness. I felt like I owed him that. So I would do both of them. And the first day, I called out sick. I didn't go to work. I was like, that's not cool. But I've started already, because when you put it on the internet, everybody knows. And now that everybody knows, they're waiting for the next day. So now I have to be healthy. And so that's what I do every day. I post it. I don't post me going through it. Lord, no. I just posted I did it, and I would do it, and I would do all that, and I raised awareness. If for no other person, I raised awareness for myself of what it is that some people are going through, what it is that we as a society, as people, should be doing better, what it is that I think needs to be done more so in the fire department. When I think of mental health challenges, when I think of the things that people go through, it's not enough for me just to understand, well, at least that's not something I'm going through. We talk about community and family in the fire department. You look at America right now, we probably need a whole lot of that as well. And particularly with these isolations and things like that. And so what his death made me realize, or what it sparked inside of me, is trying to find ways to be an advocate for reducing the stigma and helping to bring people together. Thank you.
Thanks, Nick. Nick, first of all, thank you very much. Yeah. Are you open to people sort of talking about that, asking you questions about that? Or
yeah. I mean, it's still,
it's up to you.
There's a little twang to it, but I'm still at a point where I can talk. So
yeah.
Okay.
All right. I don't know if you know the story of, and I'm not going to get into the sort of comparing game here, but there was a lot of overlap. I lost my best friend years ago. This was several years ago. Was a cop. You probably know that they also have some fairly high suicide rates. They also have guns, which is anyway. But yeah, and it's a tough loss, bro. Obviously.
Yeah, I mean, the fire service has come further. Like in my department, we have a behavioral health specialist. And so now, if I'm like, man, I need help, I can call that whole center. I can talk to someone, and they do it very discreet. I mean, I've talked to them in general. I work at the training academy in the fire department that I'm in. So I've actually had them come in because I help teach leadership, instruction, and stuff like that. So I just made it a module in my teaching. And so now they get like an hour or two to just talk to students at the different ranks and levels. So again, to me, it's like I don't want to just like, oh, I pray for you. So I figured like that's actually doing something, and I just feel a bit better about trying to make a different environment. You know.
Fuck yeah. Do what you can do.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, it's so it is. Some of you know I have a podcast. It is about suicide.
Mhm.
You know, I don't plug my shit, but if you know about it, I just talk with people who are suicide attempt survivors,
Mhm.
and one of the things that's so you know, there's 10 people here. Maybe not everyone knew exactly what this is or what it will be like, and I don't know. It's sort of I'm sort of figuring out what it might look and feel like, but there was this moment after you shared your story. I'm like, oh man, even me, I'm not sure I can ask about that because we don't talk about that. I mean, I know Nick just shared that story, but I don't know. And it's like, nah, that's not going to help anything. You know, I want to be respectful, but man, we got to talk about it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've listened to your podcast.
Oh yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. Because I mean,
Yeah.
just not enough people are talking about those subject areas.
Yeah.
And then it's just like, oh, that happened.
Yeah.
You know, that the fire service, public safety in general, it's super high.
The suicide attempt rate or suicide rate.
Yeah, you know, and I had a lot of concerns when COVID came through. So there's that, and then so there's the added stress of, you know, where the people. I mean, I'm lucky I'm in the office, but the people and the rigs are first on scene where the people do or don't have it, and then are you going to get it, and are you going to take it to your family, and then how are you isolating it from all that sort of stuff, and then oh, by the way, in the firehouse right now, we actually have to eat in shifts.
Mm-hmm.
So there's normally one really big table, and the expectation is even if you bring your own food, everybody's sitting there and you're hamming it up and you're talking. It is very much like a closed sort of thing. But because of COVID, like half the shift will eat then and the other half won't. They have to kind of separate and be in the different parts. So now you're isolated at work, you're isolated at home, you're isolated in everything you do. So for me, I have a huge concern on what that means for, you know, the stuff that people are having to deal with.
I don't. Yeah. Oh yeah. I don't know. It takes months, if not longer, to sort of get data for some of this stuff.
Yeah.
You know, you don't usually know about suicide rates till a year or more after. So yeah, it is. I hope I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure that there will be a significant spike that we see in the last, you know, whatever number of months. I hope I'm wrong. I mean, some people are doing okay. Some people are even thriving in a weird way. There's part of me that's like, yeah, COVID, not that different than, I mean, I didn't have to deal with my COVID, but the isolation, I'm like, I'm kind of used to that. You know, like there are some people where it's not that different, their actual lives. So they're kind of like, oh yeah, welcome to my world here just a little bit. Come on in. We've been here before. We're used to it. So anyway, we're getting off on that, bro. Yeah, man, that was great, Nick. Thanks, bro. I don't mean great as in, you know what I mean. You know what I mean. That was a suicide story is great, but I thank you for sharing that and being open to sharing it. Yeah. Anyone else have a question for Mr. Nick Baskerville, who resides, by the way, in the DC area? It's irrelevant, but people know I'm kind of obsessed with two things: location and teeth. Right? Which I haven't really talked about Nick's teeth much, but not bad, dude. All right. I got a story that I wrote. Remember, I think Julie and Corey and maybe I guess and maybe Richard. They've probably heard this story. I'm glad to share it. I think I'm quite not apologizing because I don't like when people apologize. But it's been a minute, as my younger and cooler friends say. It's been a minute. I'm like, wait, it's okay. Yep. So I'm glad to share that and not feel the pressure that I would feel. I think I presented it or told it at a moth, which I undoubtedly didn't win because that's just the way it goes with me usually. But I want to share it because it applies. I think I want to, again, not to talk about the story before I share the story, but I think this is a slightly sort of looser format, and it feels a little bit more conversational. Um, so there's that. But yeah. And as I do that, again, I'm glad to hear other people's stories, or even if you just have some shit to get off of your chest. I feel like this is a good space to do that as well. We'll see. So there's this problem that I have, and it's killing me. And I know that something needs to change. And so I do what a lot of people would do, and I get some help. And I go to a meeting, an AA meeting. This is a Monday evening in 2012. And when I pull in, I see this group of people standing outside the building, and they're smoking and they're talking. And I feel right at home because I like to do both of these things. And I'm walking in, and I ask one of the guys, "Hey, is this the AA meeting?" Now, I've never been to an AA meeting, so this is not familiar territory. And he said, "Yeah, welcome, brother." So I say, "Yeah, thanks. Feels good." And it's an open meeting, which means that I can just visit. There's absolutely no pressure. I don't have to say anything. I don't have to do anything. I can just listen, which is exactly what I do. Sit there and I listen. And this group of people, maybe 20, 25 people, they're all from my area, my community, and they're all alcoholics, or they wouldn't be here. And all of them are sharing. They're talking about hitting rock bottom, talking about struggle. Some of them are talking about recovery. And this is going on for like an hour or maybe more. And there is just something about these people sharing these stories. And so at the end of the meeting, they say, "Come back." And I do. And it's 1 week later, it's a Monday evening, and I'm there. Same place, same time. Mostly the same group of people, and the same guy says, "Welcome, brother." And I hear more stories. And I'm thinking, I like this. This is a space where I could hang out. And when it's my turn that night, I decide to share. Even though it's an open meeting and I don't have to, I'm like, nah, I got to share something. So I say to them, I say, "Hey, my name is Sean." And they say, "Hi, Sean." And I know the steps, or I'm getting more familiar with the steps. And I know that the first step, maybe the biggest step, is like, you've got to say, like, "I've got a problem and I don't have any power over this problem." And I want to say that. I want to say, like, "I'm an alcoholic." But I also really want to be honest. I don't know if I'm an alcoholic, and I don't want to say I'm an alcoholic if I don't think I'm an alcoholic. And I also know everyone there, they've heard that before. And they're thinking, "Yeah, sure, whatever, we get it." But I don't really believe it. But I also know that the other part of step one is to say that your life has become unmanageable. And that I can talk about. And everybody there is quiet. I mean, they are quiet. And I tell them, "Well, yeah, my life has been unmanageable." And I tell them how it began. And it was a few years earlier. I was living up in New York, where I'm from. I was in Queens. And most nights I'd go to this Irish pub on the corner, right near the subway, the 7 train. And I'd sit at the end of the bar, and I'd order a pint, always a Guinness. But I'd always order 1 pint, not 2. Like, I had this control. But I'd go there like every night, and I would chat with the bartender or these other patrons there. And I knew them, but not well. And I'd watch the ball game on TV, or I'd read a magazine, and I'd finish. I'd walk home a few blocks, and I would be alone going home. And at this point, when I'm telling this group of my community in this AA meeting, this part of like where things began to get unmanageable, I'm waiting for one of them to say something that makes me want to stop sharing, or maybe walk out, or even kind of like do this dramatic thing where I say, "You know what? Go fuck yourself," because I'm really good at that. But they don't say a word. They're just listening. This room is quiet. And I just keep talking. And I tell them I moved to North Carolina in 2010. And it's, now it's 2 years later. And it's the same story. I mean, the bar and the bartender are different. and the sports team on TV has changed. Same scene, same story. And I say, look, guys, look, I managed last time in New York. I got through it. But it's been like a few months here in North Carolina. And it's the same shit, man. I don't drink typically more than one beer, but I go to this bar every night. And every night I walk home alone. And so I end what I share. I say, hey, thanks for listening, and that's what they did. They listened. And when I was finished, they didn't say all the stupid shit people say. They said, thank you. And I know they think I'm an alcoholic. I know it. Because they've heard this story over and over and over again, but not one of them says that to me. Now, what I don't tell them is that I had just learned that one of my close friends died from this seizure, a drug-related seizure. We don't know the details, but I know that through a friend of his that he died alone in his bedroom and that his mom found him and that he was 30 years old. And he had been on and off of drugs for years. And when he was off drugs, he was in a 12-step program. So for me, going through this stuff again and hearing about my buddy Mike, it feels different. And it really feels like I don't know, like it might be killing me. And I'm aware that something needs to change, but I'm just not quite sure what it is. But they say, keep coming back. But now I'm living in these two worlds because I go to these meetings on Mondays, but I go to the bar the other nights. And when I get to the bar, I typically sit at the end of the bar near the front window where it's like on the street. And I sit and I always look, like I'm hoping that nobody from the group, I mean, they're all people in my community. I'm hoping they're not walking by, seeing me through the window. So the next Monday morning, I don't say the morning, Monday evening, I go back to the meeting and I don't say much because I'm feeling conflicted. And I just say my name and I say, thanks for letting me be here. And I listen as I always do. And after the meeting, some people are smoking outside and I join them. And one of this guy's name is Kenny, comes up to me and tells me the story that every new person, I'm sure they hear at some point. He tells me how he was like me. And he knew he had a problem. He realized he had a problem. He admitted it. And that was over 10 years ago. And it's been clean ever since. And he's got his life back and on and on and on. And I like Kenny. I like everybody here because they share and they say thank you. And they seem to really give a shit. And that's not an easy place to find. But I also know that these meetings, even the open meetings, they're for addicts, alcoholics. And if you're not one of those, or you don't admit it, you're not really, you're no longer like a brother. And I still like going to that bar and drinking my beer. So I say goodbye to Kenny and I drive away. And I really do want to come back, but I don't. And like New York, I get a handle on the drinking again. So I'm okay. And I realize that I might be an alcoholic and I might not. I don't know. I may have a drinking problem. But what I realized, really became clear is that I do have this problem that is killing me. And as I sit here today, 8 years later, it remains in the middle of a pandemic. 8 years later, as I share this with you at my kitchen table in my home alone, my problem is that I am lonely. And something needs to change. Thank you. It's fucking weird sharing to an audience that's completely quiet. I'm kind of in the story when I'm telling it, so it's fine. No, it's all good. But I'm like, everyone knows what that feels like, right? Who's shared a story on Zoom. So what's interesting, I don't want to blab about my own story, but it's like not a lot has changed for me. I know it's not a popular thing. Like, oh no, everything's good now. I figured it out. And I'm clean. And I met this great girl. Now, I'm still kicking. I'm still here. But it's like, nah. I said to Winnie and Alyssa, who came on a bit early, I'm like, yep, I got my little brandy here. So that part of the puzzle still, But hey, bye.
Hi, Julie.
Bye, Julie.
Hi, Baker.
Bye,
You know,
Julie. Thanks for coming, Julie. So anyway, I'm hosting, and it's weird to tell a story when you host, but I suppose this space is just to talk. If anything came up for you, talk, ask.
well, you
whatever.
know, one of the things that I think about, and what you're talking about there for like where your story ends right now, I
Yeah.
learned this from a storytelling workshop I went to where, you know, the question was like, how do you know where your story begins and ends, right? And normally people talk about, well, here's your change. If you're doing a personal narrative, if this is where you're at, go back to when you weren't there, talk about how you
Right.
kind of got there.
Opposite.
But the one of the things that he brought up is like, look, your life is one long epic story that's made up of smaller ones. So really where the story begins and ends just depends on where you pick for that to kind of happen. So you could start off happy,
Totally.
go into the valley and then end up happy, and that's where your story, or you could start off in the valley and happy, or however that is.
Right. Yeah.
And so when I think about that, it's like, well, that's just where you're at. But you know, so then it comes to question: does the story ever really end, or
Right.
you're just waiting for the next season of your life to kind of come through, and you're hoping that you don't get some sort of crazy ending, or you know, what new characters are going to get involved, or whatever else, you know?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. That's a good point. If you get into storytelling, I think it's a great point. Like, where does it begin?
Right.
Because at some point, especially if it's a little more formal than this, like let's say use the Moth as an example, but there are plenty of other groups. You have to pick a starting point. It does actually start somewhere and end somewhere. Yeah. So I know what you're saying though, but yeah, that's the tricky thing is like, where do I start and end this story? Yeah.
Well, I mean, even deeper than that, you know, one of the things I storytelling has helped me do this. But you know, when something's going on, one of the things I ask myself is, where am I at in this story in my life? So not just from I'm telling the story, but like, is it done yet? So like, if you're going through a great time, like, hey, this is great, but at some point it's going to fall off. Where am I at in my story?
Right.
Or if you're going through crap, you're like, this is really crappy. So how do I know how long to kind of stay with something, right? So like if you're had a crappy part of your job, well, do I leave the job only to find out that I left the story too early and I needed to finish the season?
Yeah.
You know, and so I think about that, like job, marriage, everything. You know, whenever I kind of realize where am I at, it's like, well, do I continue the story? Do I need a new story? Like,
I think it's interesting, Nick. One of the things for me is I think because you talked about suicide, I've dealt with suicide loss and my own ideation for years. And I think, and this is just how I'm sort of taking what you just said and applying it. When you know that the story is going to be the same and there's not a fuck thing you can do about it, as much as you try, you know, and it doesn't matter if you're right or wrong. It really doesn't matter, you know? So for example, if I know for sure, or I believe this loneliness thing's not going away, that's where it gets dangerous. Again, I'm not speaking for others. Probably some others see it. I don't know, you know, like, oh, but that made me think of that. Like when you can't see the story ending, if you think it needs to end or shift, that's where it's scary.
Yes.
And that's part of my life, actually. I'm not like, I deal with this. This is real, you know? So no one wants to be alone for the rest of their life. That's not most people, right? Even people, I always think like people are like, nah, I'm alone, or I always think, no, you're not. You're just scarred. I don't know. Maybe some people are like legitimately loners, but most of the time I'm like, you know?
I'm right there with you, Sean. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, you know, hey. Corey's eating. What are you eating? Cheerios? We're talking about this real stuff. You eating Rice Krispies down there? What are you doing?
It's a salad, you big meanie.
Cucumbers?
No cucumbers. They don't feel like in season in Iowa.
Oh, it's always season for cucumbers, man.
But I never did go back.
No.
Mm-mm.
Mm.
I never did go back. I ended up teaching English in Saudi Arabia, which dries you out fast.
Wow.
Really hard to get booze there. There's a lot of middle-aged, particularly British dudes, and they'll tell you like the money's good, but I don't want to drink. I gotta dry out, and that's like their second reason for being there.
Wow.
It's hard to get alcohol there, and there's not a lot of places in the world where it's so hard to get booze.
How long were you there?
I was there for what, 9 months ish, 9-ish. Yeah, like an academic. They're academic.
Yeah.
Sort of a fall and spring.
It's 1 school year.
Yeah, these were like they have like a gap year sort of where it's like before they're freshmen in college, they have to take certain classes, and English is one of them. So it's this big university. It was fun. It was all right. It's tough to drink, but you know what's interesting? Oh, I think I found the booze. It's there. What took me what took me a long time to understand, but the foreign women learned rather quickly, is there's a whole world there behind closed doors that's like off the charts. But guys like me are not invited because the people that have those events are typically wealthy princes who really don't want me there, but definitely want the British or the Welsh or the American woman. So they were getting invited to it's absurd. And somehow eventually I got in to see one of those places. Wow. Totally different thing going on behind those gates, man.
That's a different direction. I thought you were going to say, I never found the booze, but I smoke weed now.
Nope. Nope. I did my drug. Yeah. Nope. Yeah. Does anyone else feel like sharing? Again, it's a rather, at least for now, a rather loose interpretation. I think we all know the general energy. I don't know Corey super well, but I know when he's thinking, I'm not sure if I have a story. I might. I know that face. I know that look he's got. Sort of has that, like, you know what I'm saying, Corey?
I'm letting everything percolate through the filters, man.
Yeah. Give it a little time. It's all good. And Hermina, Richard, Hanadi, I'm not picking on you. I just don't see you. By all means, if you feel like sharing, please do. No pressure. Hanadi, I like what you've done with your hair. It's new, isn't it?
Thank you. I didn't do anything.
Okay, you're welcome.
It was really because it was a windy day.
Got you.
The wind helped out.
So I just gave you a compliment because of the wind?
Yes. It's very windy today.
I believe we would call that all natural.
Yeah.
That would be correct.
Very
Danny,
80s MTV video movie kind of model thing, you know?
Andy, what part of California are you in again? Northern?
Northern California.
What county?
Santa Clara County, but I go to up north a lot. So
You do? Humboldt?
no, I haven't been there.
I heard that's an interesting place.
I'll check it out.
Check it out. Shoot me a little, like text me when you're there. Like, hey, I'm here.
Okay.
I'm in.
But what's interesting about it?
You're going to tell me.
Okay.
You're going. When you're there, you'll let me know. I've heard.
He just assigned you homework.
You don't have to do it. I would be slightly disappointed if you didn't do it, but it's okay if you don't.
Now I'm excited to find out.
Do it, Anadi. Do it, or tell a story. Either one. That's your option.
I'll go to.
You're gonna go to Humboldt. There's no way she's gonna. But I have to say, you've been to a lot of these events in the last 7-8 months now. So you're a good supporter. I appreciate that. Just so you all know, I have a lot of these events are on Sundays. The next one, and by the way, if someone wants to share a story, you still can. I'm not closing it out, but just so you know, I'm actually looking. What did I wrote? The next one on Sunday, we have something called Flash, which a few people here have been to. It's fun. It's sort of story plus meets improv, that type of thing. Sort of short, quick prompts, save space, have some fun, tell a personal story. Then the week after that, and these are all Sundays. It's something called 7 by 7, where it's curated. Those are people who have to tell typically around 7-minute stories. So that's in 2 weeks. Yeah, I'm making sure I got my math right here. And then the week after that, we have something called the 99-second slam, which you can probably figure out from the name, is a competitive open mic where there's winners, and the maximum length of your stories is 99 seconds. So Winnie, I'll tell you this, you want to get to like the core of a story, try to make it in 99 seconds. It is really a challenge, but at least 3 or 4 people here have been involved in some of those or all of those. So I would love to see you there. I like getting new people in the world. It's fun. Even if they're in Louisville. Alyssa, you want to unmute yourself for a sec? You're studying you're counseling? You're studying counseling? Was it?
Yes. Yeah, that's correct.
What is that? What year are you in? Where are you in that process?
I'm in my second year. It's a 3-year program.
And in University of Kentucky, Louisville?
I'm actually going through Asbury Theological Seminary. Yeah.
Why does that make me pause?
I don't know.
Oh, so are you trying to, do you have to balance God with mental health? Sort of the spiritual world with the mental health world and find the overlap?
To an extent. So my degree, will just be for mental health counseling. For me, I am a Christian, so that kind of factors into how I view the world personally. But in terms of counseling, it only comes into the picture as much as the client wants it to.
Yeah.
So, so I work with anyone from any walk of life, and one question we always ask is, what is your spirituality? Because that's a key component of who people are that sometimes gets neglected in the mental health world. So
yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
There's a program, and there may be some in the States. I don't think many, but I think it's called narrative therapy.
Narrative therapy, yes. I took a class in that last summer.
Yeah, there's this program. I don't. You're probably familiar with this. I think in Melbourne. It's a big program in Melbourne that, like, a friend of a friend who's involved in story just got accepted into that program. I guess they have an online thing, but are there programs here in the States as well? Do either Winnie or Alyssa or someone else know? Specifically narrative. Is it called therapy or counseling or narrative? What is it?
Yeah, narrative therapy is the name for it. It is not as popular here in the States. I did take it with a professor who is certified and specializes in that area. But it's not as well known here as it is outside of the United States. And my professor, he's actually from Zimbabwe. And so he comes from a culture where storytelling is a very big piece of the culture. So it makes sense that that's something that resonates.
Yeah.
But it was really informative for me because it's learning to basically look at your life as story. And a lot of times, people do counseling because there's a problem in their life. And so it's learning to articulate and see that problem as having a life of its own, and kind of creating some separation between yourself and that, because, a lot of times we have a tendency to be like, oh, I'm a terrible person, or I really this is my issue. We take ownership of it in a very personal way. So when we begin to look at the problem as its own identity, we can begin to interact with it and to feel safe to respond to it, and to see ourselves in a more positive light as well.
I have a sort of, I was in this psychiatric unit 2 years ago. This isn't a random comment, it's connected. And when I got out of the hospital, I was only there for a week, but I got out, and for a while, I tried to write this story. You try to write from a scar and not a wound and yada, yada, yada. And, you can, once you figure out, really understand the story, you realize all right, well, the events at the hospital can lead to 12 different stories, right? That's
very true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, I never really thought of it in terms of a therapeutic value, though I think there's, depending on how you define therapy, I think it's very healthy to do this. So I think that's therapeutic. But I noticed that when I tried to write that story, for a while, here was the story. Basically, it was this. I had this experience at the hospital. The fucking system sucks. The end. Now I made it like 7 minutes, but that was like, that's, you want to be able to boil it down, right?
Yeah.
I had this really shitty experience. It sucked. What a shame. Because that's a really good hospital and it still sucks. Sorry, don't go. That was it. The reason I'm sharing it with you is when I was in a group, I am in a group that I am involved with several times a week. And let me write another story, see if there's another story there.
Yeah.
And I'm not the guy at all who's like, just tell a happier story and your life will be great. That is not me. That is not me. And I hate the marketing bullshit that sounds like that. I hate all of it. I don't hate it. I just don't like any of it. I don't resonate with any of it. But I'm thinking about this story, and there's this nurse. And this nurse was nice, and a lot of the other nurses weren't nice. So I write a story around that. Some people here have heard it. How a lot of people didn't really treat me shitty. They were just doing their jobs in a shitty system where they ignored people and treated them like whatever. And there was this one nurse who didn't do that. And my whole point, and boy, it took me a long time to get here, is now when I share the story about my stay in the hospital, sometimes it's not just that the hospital sucks, don't go there. It's, man, there was this nurse there, and he was the kindest man, and his simple acts just changed everything from my experience there. So the narrative, there's something about narrative therapy that overlaps with that for me. About, I wasn't trying to do anything. I was like, oh, okay, so that thing now isn't the same exact thing now. I don't know what they say in that program, but they probably have something to say about it.
Yeah, I mean, that definitely fits right in with it, because the idea is narratives, like we keep telling ourselves the same story over and over, and that becomes cemented in like how we view ourselves, our situation, everything.
Yeah, right.
So a big piece of narrative is beginning to look for alternative stories. And then
it's so tricky because you want them to feel truthful and honest.
Right.
And for me, the ones that tend not to be that, like, no, my life sucks, and anything other than that's not true, so fuck off. That's like, you'd really not want me as your client, by the way. That's actually how I am with them, and they're like, don't talk to me that way. But you know what I'm saying? Like, you want to make it feel real, and for a while I go, nah, whatever, fuck the nurse. I don't care. That's not the story that needs to be told. That's not my truth.
Right.
But eventually it was like, nah, it's part of it.
Yeah.
And there's probably other stories there too,
For sure. Yeah, I can resonate with what you're saying from personal experience as well. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Well, what I think is interesting about that is, so it's not that the story has changed, but the perspective is.
Exactly.
Like 9/11 happened, right? But and it's the exact same thing no matter where you were, but like how you interpret it and what it meant and the impact depending on where you're at, and how close were you to where it actually happened? Were you even in the same country? Right. So I think that's what's, to me, that's interesting about that, is that idea of no, you're saying the same story, but I just want you to come over here to the left or to the right and take a look at that, and now tell me what it is you see.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really cool. It's very liberating in a way. Even not even like therapy, just story, when you realize, oh, like that one thing that happened on that Saturday last year, I was like, oh my God, this thing happened. Like, you can play with that and write 7 stories, and they're all equally true, arguably. You're just a story, right? We know our story is more than just the events that happened. It's like you're saying, Nick, the perspective, the change, that's what makes it a thing. Without it, it's like, I don't know, I guess we call it anecdote or something else. That's fine, but different.
I mean, I think,
I know you study this stuff. Nick is like always posting questions like, oh yeah, you do a lot of that. Folktale and personal narrative and all of it, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's and so what's weird, of course, is so I really got into storytelling because it's just a matter of, all right, so how do I communicate this point better? Like, that was it. That's all I wanted. I teach. I taught. My me diving into storytelling. I taught a class for 8 hours in the fire service. is about hazardous chemicals, and I loved it. It was awesome. And then the student came and says, "Hey, I don't understand it." And I was like, "Well, what don't you understand?" He's like, "I don't understand all of it." And I was like, "You mother sucker! I've been talking to you for 8 hours. How do you not understand? I know I was teaching real good."
Right.
So then how do I get better at that? So, the short of it is I found that storytelling was one of those ways.
So that was like your entry point mainly?
Yeah.
Wow. All right.
That was
very
my
cool.
entry. And then, it's like, you pick up one thing about story. Oh, well, there's something else. And then you pick up, oh, well, there's something else. And so that's when I got into understanding some of these other things about the perspective and how people were thinking and the laughter, the healing. We just finished our last class for a storytelling class I'm helping to teach for the military, and they perform in a few weeks.
Awesome.
And so we're doing a report out. We're like, oh, hey, what did you like about it? But and so many of them from this class, they were like, I was able to tell stories that I had inside of me, and I didn't know how to say it. And I feel like it's such
magic. It's magic.
Oh man, and it's such a huge thing, So
oh my God.
And coming back to that whole thing of therapeutic and being, it's not the thing that I set out on. It's not even the thing that I would have thought of initially, but I see it. I get it.
Is that a public showcase? I would love to see it, man.
Yeah. I'll post it in the comments. It's
and then I'm sure you'll do a little bit of publicity, like in Steph's group, your group. Yeah, I want to see that. I'm really into certain stories where they're, stories from military dudes, and there'll be different stories, but there's some sort of like that's the theme more than necessarily like themes on what you would get at the Moth. Like I like when it's a demographic theme sometimes, and it's a showcase.
Yeah, and it'll vary,
it's all good.
Well, because we teach them the storytelling, but they pick the story.
Yes.
So it's like this mix of, some people are like, sometimes they'll talk about their time in Iraq.
Sure.
Or they'll talk about harassment in the military, right? And then some of them they've just decided to pick something totally different, and they're talking about just regular humans. One of them was talking about being a mom.
Sure, absolutely.
And how she's not the mom she thought she was, and how she had to deal with that.
Great, I want to see it. Okay. Other thoughts, ideas, stories, comments, questions? By all means, if you need to leave. I know it's small and it feels weird to leave when it's small, but it's fine. We've been together for some time. Bye, Winnie. Hey, Winnie. No pressure, but if you want to know about future events, I don't know how you found this one, but Sean Wellington, maybe find me on Facebook. Whatever your thing is, if Facebook isn't your thing, just I'd love to.
I found it on Facebook.
Be part of the ecosystem. All right, cool.
Sure. I'm going to challenge myself for the 90 second. Sorry. Yeah, because
99 second.
Yeah, 99 second. Yeah, because.
So, do you have my information if you want to get a hold of me and I can share more with you?
Yeah, I can. I have the Facebook post, right?
Yeah. You could find the group or me. Yeah, just reach out. I'm happy to share more. Thanks again.
So, because I know I can't do really tiny stories, I'm going to challenge myself and learn how to do it.
Totally.
So this is like
it's a kind of funky format, but it's been going well so far. So yeah, cool. Thanks again.
Thank you all. It was nice meeting you. Bye.
Watch what happens now. Once the first person leaves, within 9 seconds, it's all good, y'all. Do we have any other stories or things to talk about? I'm happy to. If not, we can just say, hey, it was nice, and let's move on with our evenings. Corey?
I have a question for Alyssa.
Cool.
Sure, yeah.
The 3-year program you're doing, is it like an extended associate's or a accelerated bachelor's, or it's just a certification?
No, it's a master's in counseling. It's a KCREP. Yeah, it's a KCREP accredited program, which just basically means it's licensing for counseling.
Right. Okay. I'm really interested in that narrative.
The narrative one?
Yeah.
That's
not what she's doing though, right? You're not doing that, Alyssa, the narrative.
No, not specifically. I mean, I took a course in it. So I have a book, actually, I can see it from my shelf. It's called Narrative Therapy and Practice. So there's a huge institute. I believe it's in Europe, but they're phenomenal. They have so many resources, so much available.
What is they, when you say they? What's the they?
Give me just a second.
Oh, is it like a
it's an institute. Yeah.
I don't. You're talking to someone who is so not academic. So when you say institute, I get scared, and then I stop talking.
So yeah, it's a collaborative of a bunch of therapists who specialize in narrative and teaching it like all across the world.
They probably have summits Like a summit,
Yeah, it's all kinds of different ones.
conferences, then there's summit and break. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
My
Let
world.
me
But yeah,
grab it really.
you know, Nick knows what I'm talking. Yeah. Oh, they're getting together and talking about the research they're doing, and then they've cited things. You know, and you're like, you sound smart, but I'm not buying it, buddy. Sherry, that there's also a school. This I can connect you with this woman. No pressure. Just think they have an online thing. It's out of Melbourne, I believe, somewhere in Australia for sure. Specifically on narrative therapy. I don't know a lot about it, but it's kind of cool sounding. But I don't think there's anything else like it. Period. Anyway, don't know the prerequisites. Don't know much at all. But just saw her saying something about getting into that program.
Yeah, I was just wondering if it would be something I could use on my page with somebody, you know?
Sure. Yeah. Hermina, no pressure to talk. I see you there. Is that your, where are we? Where are we in your home? Is that your living room? Give me a location.
This is my bed.
Yeah, I was going to say it looks like her bed. I like the way she said that.
I know, I was like, okay. Hermina's a dancer. Hermina's a casino dancer, a Cuban salsa dancer.
Oh, thank you.
That's how we know each other. So just giving people background. Corey's in a group I do 3 times a week. Which, Nick, you can come that sometime if you want to, man. If you're available on 3 Eastern. I don't think you've ever been to the swap shop, have you? Maybe once? Never?
No.
You should come. It's cool.
Well, I mean, particularly during the week is a bit difficult. So I'm pretty fortunate because I work in an office, I can work remotely.
Yeah.
But I mean, my classes vary at different times and stuff like that, and I pop into different meetings. So
Corey goes, Richard goes, mainstays. Richard, big time, old school. I don't know. I think Richard might be sleeping, but it's okay, even though it's 5:30 by him, because he's in Vegas.
I was wondering.
No, I'm here. I'm here. I just my camera doesn't. I'm on a computer where I don't have a camera, so yeah.
Okay.
I thought he was promoting a book or something.
Richard's got stuff to promote if he wants. Richard, I do want to know, I apologize, what is the name of your podcast again?
My podcast is called Gambling with an Edge.
With an Edge.
Yeah, it's geared toward people, both professional gamblers and people who are interested in advantage gambling of all sorts.
So, quick question. Why would anyone be interested in anything other than advantage gambling?
Because most people are not interested or willing to put in any kind of work or study. Yeah. Because it's not easy. It's not like I tell you, always sit in this seat and you're going to win. You know what I mean? So most people are not willing to put in the time and effort to
So that's the advantage. Part of the advantage is working really hard.
Yeah, exactly. But there are some people who are, right? Sure. There are some people that really want to, get every advantage they can. So
I would imagine, even though most people aren't willing to do all the work, there's a lot of people that are willing to do a lot of work. So to have a real advantage, and I guess it's more around advantage over the house, but sometimes it's other people because it's numbers, right? Like you still have to learn a shit ton of stuff.
Yeah, but it's also it's kind of a way of thinking. So now I can't remember the name. There was a movie, an Adam Sandler movie about a guy who discovered this thing about airline miles by buying pudding. And I think it was Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless.
Maybe.
Or no. I'm sorry. Punch Drunk Love, I think was it. Anyway, that's based on a real guy. Like if you just Google pudding guy, there's a Wikipedia page that explains, how this guy basically got free flights for the rest of his life by buying pudding. But it's the same kind of thinking that goes into professional gambling, finding an actual advantage and then exploiting it. So it ends up applying to all forms of life.
It totally does. I can't get away with my looks forever.
Yeah.
I got to do something else at some point to have an edge, right?
Right.
Damn. Too little, too late, dog. Other thoughts, comments, stories, questions. But I appreciate everyone being here. It'll take shape, man. This
Yeah.
will be the 4th of my 4 ongoing events. So monthly. And yeah, we'll see what happens. Alyssa, can I find you on Facebook and invite you to stuff?
Sure. Yeah.
Or are you super millennial where you don't use Facebook like my niece and it's only friggin' Instagram?
No, Facebook's really the only thing I use. I'm old school in that way.
Are you on Instagram, Sean?
No.
No, I didn't think so.
I don't know what it is really. I mean, I
Twitter?
know it's a thing and it's very popular. I know Twitter. I'm not like, it's not foreign, but no. You
Just
know, look, I could use a social media manager if that's what you're asking. But hey, cool. Well, Alyssa, Richard, Hanadi, Nick, Hermina, Corey, Sherry, love y'all. Thank you. I'll stick around a little bit because there might be people who want to just keep chatting. I'm happy to, but let's formally end it. And for some of my people, I'll see you. That sounds weird, my people. Tomorrow. You know who you are.
Yep.
Up shop.
See you later.
Hey guys. Thanks again, Nick,
Good
for your
night.
story.
You. Good night.
Good night. Good night. Thanks, Hanadi.